Welcome, friends, to the Pioneers of the Independent Networks. I'm your host, Ricky Blues. This is your co-host, Tim Walker. Friends, if you've joined us in the past, you know we here at PIN bring you all the characters, the matches, the promotions, and the background people that populated the Mid-Atlantic independent wrestling scene from the 1980s through today. We're talking about 4 decades worth of archive material at your fingertips. That's what our job here at Pioneers of the Independent Networks is, and that's to bring it to you, the fans. This week, we're coming to you on location. Tim, where are we coming from this week?
We're coming from downtown Saginaw, Michigan. The fishing is great here, by the way.
And it's not as swampy as that place we were at last week in the Everglades.
Our special guest this week is Al Albert. Al's probably best known as the ring announcer for Maryland Championship Wrestling, and he's also ring announced for many of the local independents throughout the Mid-Atlantic area throughout the years.
Al, welcome to the show. It is
Thank you
great
very
to
much.
have you along.
Great to be here. Nice to be back with you guys. I've known you guys for a long time.
A
So
long time. We're
Yeah,
talking decades in the past, which makes us all
we'll just let that go.
Yes. Just know that we're
We
the
won't
old
dwell on
timers.
the age today.
Exactly. Al, many of our fans are going to recognize you, but what we want to do here today is give you the opportunity, because it's so important that not only the people that they see on the other side of the camera, and sometimes you know, as a ring announcer, you're on the other side, but they don't get to know your story. And you have a great, compelling story. You have been around the Mid-Atlantic, not only in today's guys, which is Maryland Championship Wrestling, but Al's been around from the early days. UIW, WIN, MEWF, and today's Maryland Championship version of Maryland Championship Wrestling. So he has a career that's got a very large breadth and wingspan to it. So we want to give Al that opportunity, and the fans even a bigger opportunity to take a window into Al's world. So Al, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself before the wrestling business.
Well, I started out in college. I always wanted to be an announcer. I always wanted to be a game show host, too. We had the family version at home. I was the game show host. I didn't play the games. I was the host. So I always wanted to be some type of speaker, announcer, or something like that. I was bowling. I was a big avid bowler. When I was actually on the school newspaper, did the high school announcements. So that got me started. When I went to college, I worked at Dundalk Community College television station, where I was the first anchor, the host of the news. I did play-by-play for sports. I did a lot of stuff in the studio, the news program. So I kept it going. I happen to know the legendary Bob Starr and his mom. Bob got me involved with MEWF, said, hey, he knew I was a wrestling fan, which went back to the early 70s. He said, why don't you become our ring announcer? Went to Stony Creek Democratic Club one night, did the first show, and it's all history after that.
From the history, so you got your tryout, and you got your trial by fire.
Yes.
There was no send you a tape, send you here, come see me do this. It is, here's the show, you want the opportunity, here it is, seize the opportunity, and if you can, then we'll give you that job.
Exactly. I was working with one other guy, Dave, I don't remember his last name, and it was like, okay, here you go. And I got in, and they decided after that show, hey, we're going to keep Al, we'll get rid of this guy. I've been there ever since. And I've been a wrestling fan since the early 70s. I used to go down to the WWWF, sat ringside where Mrs. Krieger, the legendary Jeff Amder, was sitting near me. And I was still a kid back then. I think Jeff's never aged, because he still looks the same now as he did back in the early 70s. Went to all the shows. My first match was Bruno Sammartino versus Spiros Arion.
Wow.
And we were talking about this earlier. Backlund was the champion. Arnold Skolin sat in the corner. It wasn't the managers like Lou Albano that walked around. He sat in the corner, and this is my funniest story ever. Arnold Skolin was sitting in the corner in a chair. Watch Backlund wrestle. Now, I'm a kid, so of course I'm thinking all this stuff, you know. It's
Legit,
the business,
right? It's
You know,
legit.
it's the business. Arnold Skolin had a thing where he would point to his head when Backlund was wrestling, when he would look at him. Me being a kid, I'm watching this, so when Backlund, me sitting in the front row, Backlund's wrestling, if he's laying there looking at me, I'm going... Had no clue what it meant, but I was doing it because I was trying to help my man. But I still to this day just like, come on, Bob, come on, Bob.
And thus, your introduction to the love of this business.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to see the legends. Haystacks Calhoun. I was there when Hogan came in. The Samoans. You know, Lou Albano. The Grand Wizard was still there. Even the early guys like Johnny Roz, all those Baron Mikel Cicluna.
Mhm.
You know, some legendary names that never got the respect, but I got to see everybody. So just to see the legends then, and now being a part of the business and working with the legends today, it's pretty cool.
Absolutely, that's the dream come true. Now and I just want to jump on this real quick, and Tim, I want you to follow this up. Back in the time that you're talking, we were fans there as well, and it wasn't that the Civic Center, the arena now, or whatever they want to call it, the Civic Center, it wasn't just the forum for the big show. This was your TV tapings, your house shows, your everyday, every kind of run-of-the-mill story that was unfolding. So you got to see it in a different light. It wasn't that this was the one place that all the big shows came to, even though there was a couple significant title changes in Baltimore, but it was the if you're looking at the book, it was the chapters in the book
Right.
that were unfolding monthly. So it was.
Well, you only had back then. You only had one TV show to watch at 4 o'clock on Saturdays on
Right.
Channel 45.
WBFF.
Was wrestling. That was it. And then when you went once a month, that was your carryover. You know, because they put those promos on TV. The ones that, you know, hey, we're coming to the Baltimore Civic Center, and you went because
Right.
that's the only time you got to see them. You didn't have the media knowledge and the creativity that they have now that Vince has made it. You just had your once a week show and then your once a month at the Civic Center.
I remember back then too. It was almost like a family experience because the same people sat in the same seats.
Oh, yeah.
And if you sat there, you talked to the person next to you and trade stories. It always became a monthly family gathering.
Oh, yeah,
see how
definitely.
your friends that sat beside you on your left or on your right, how they were doing and what was happening in their lives and stuff like that. So it was really not only the wrestling; it was almost like a little social gathering.
For the people that I went with were friends of my family, and they invited me every month. When they got there, when we went to our seats, Mr. Louie was his name. He went and got the tickets for the next month. He had the same seats. They were held for him. And we had the legendary Mrs. Krieger, little lady that ran around the ring. All the wrestlers knew if they were heels, they came over and yelled at her. If they were faces, they came over and blew her a kiss. They knew they had to come over. There was no guardrails back then either.
Right.
There was just a little mat on the floor on the outside. She would run around, security guard would follow her, she'd sit back down, they were done, the match went on. And you knew everybody. We talked about the guys with the rubber chickens, and you had Jeff Amdur was there. All kinds of people dressing up. They were there every month. Yeah, and they knew they would be there. Now you don't. You got to hurry up and hope to get tickets.
And it was the design of exactly that, to carry the stories. It piqued your interest. It made you want to return. That's one of the elements, in my opinion, and I know we've had these discussions, Tim, that's missing from today's show. That interest like that, it's not just a spectacle. This was something you invested in week to week, not just tuned in as a spectacle.
And just like Al said, it wasn't overexposed then either.
Right.
You had your hour of television, which built to the house show, and you had that anticipation from show to show. You wanted to be there to follow the story.
You had title matches, but the belt hardly ever changed hands unless it was at Madison Square Garden, something like that. Baltimore did have the one time,
With Bruno?
but other than that, you went hoping that there was going to be a title change, but 99% of the time there wasn't.
There wasn't.
But you went for the show to see the guys because this was your only chance for that month to see them.
And those characters were really, when I was that age too, I always thought those characters were like really bigger than life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was really a big deal for me to go to the
The first time I saw Andre the Giant, I went, whoa. Just looking up at the guy, and I'm 10, 11 years old. His leg is bigger than me. And I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. When the first time Hogan come out, I was in awe. Because they were right there in front of me. There was no guard railing and no wall. They came by, they were right in front of you.
Yeah, and if you brought up the Samoans earlier, I remember when I was about that age, and the Samoans made a move toward me. Boy, did I jump.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there was a few times where I was like, okay, now I can use some security. But and security actually sat at the corners of the ring posts.
Right.
Back then. They weren't outside at the wall or anything else. They were right there at the ring.
Al, you've mentioned so many important points that we have to touch that folks never get the opportunity to understand. We want to give you that opportunity to explain some of it. First and foremost, I know what it was like getting out in the ring and wrestling in front of people with nothing on, like more than your underwear.
Right.
I know that feeling, but I'm only there for, at that time, our matches were constantly between that 20 and 30-minute time period. That's you were out there. It's completely different. That is one little piece of the puzzle. Once you got your feet wet, you realized that you were the backbone of the show. You were really the spine of the show, and the wrestlers were the ribs. And not a rib as in funny, but the ribs of the skeleton. They were the fill-ins. It was your job to carry that show on to the folks out there, to be the almost the narrator of the book that was unfolding. That's the best way that I could put it. I want you to tell us a little bit about that nervousness that first was there, because everyone has that, and how you were able to overcome that, and that whole understanding of what it was like to now be the central figure in what was unfolding as a show. Because it's not just one match, as the show. You
have to connect the dots. You are almost like you said, but you're a liaison to the crowd. The crowd looks to you because you're the person they do see the most. You know, they relate to you. My first time at Stony Creek Democratic Club, I wasn't too nervous, but I was nervous because it was something new. I hadn't done this, but I did have the radio experience, which was live. So you can screw up on the radio to a point, but you still have to have the connectivity between songs. So that helped. In television, like here, you can have outtakes, you can redo it. So I was sort of mixing the two because you're doing a live show. Early on, and you can attest to this, and Tim too, the crowds weren't big.
Right.
Because you were still growing. Right, a couple hundred. So you got the nervousness, and to this day, I'm still nervous. Because the crowds are bigger, the expectations are a little bit bigger. You know, you got a big crowd, you got a big show, you got to perform. But my whole philosophy has been from day one is, I'm not the star, I do connect the dots. The guys, I want to make sure that they get promoted the way they're supposed to get promoted. Because they are the ones who are doing all the work in the ring. So for me, I talk to the crowd, and it's almost like, besides a liaison, the correct word I'm looking for would be not guest relations, but in that type of sense, a concierge maybe, where you talk to the fans, you become one of them almost, because you talk to them and you get to know them because they do see you. You know how many times I get yelled at ringside from people who know that I've been there so long. You know, come on Al, get up in that ring. Come on, hey Al, yeah, this. But it's fun because that's how you get to know the people. Because they see you, you get to talk to them during intermissions, between matches when guys are leaving, you got that little bit of dead time and you're waiting to get in the ring. You get to talk to them. And that's the fun part for me, is getting to know the fans.
Well, you're their guide. You are taking them through this experience from opening bell to end of the curtain calls.
Yep. And, you know, it used to be we announced times. You know, you had to tell them who won, who lost. Who is this guy? Because if you got somebody new, they don't know who it is. You know, it's your job to say, hey, you know, this is so-and-so. Give them a good intro. And if it's somebody really big, you know, you pay them tribute. I've dealt with Mick Foley, all the stars. You know, you give them their due because they've earned it. So you just, and that's where the nervousness can really come in, because you got a big star, say like Mick Foley. You know, you don't want to screw that up, because he deserves it. And having worked with him for so long, I mean, I remember, and he remembers working back at Bingo Bill's, working Morgus the Maniac.
Right.
So he has the memory. So you want to treat the big stars, the superstars, with uttermost respect, but you also give it to the wrestlers and to the fans, because you are the person. And to this day, I'm still nervous.
I can tell you, all my experiences with you from every different organization that we worked, I've always looked at you as a consummate professional. I've never saw one bit of nervousness. And as a matter of fact, before I turn it over to Tim, I want to take our fans on a quick little stroll down a nostalgia lane. I got a little video. It's about a minute and a half of Al. One of the most important things that I ever saw you do in connecting with the fans, and that is how you always open the show to bring people in. So ladies and gentlemen, let's jump in that Wayback Machine in our tartar and go back to 1994 to the MEWF and take a look at how Al brought the crowd along with him.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Buffalo Bills. Let me hear some noise. Come on now, you know his name, and you can't have a wrestling show without him. He is the voice of the MEWF. He is Al Albert.
How's everybody doing tonight? All right, it's been a few weeks. Are you ready for some wrestling action? Tonight we have for you in the main event, King Kong Bundy versus Adam Bomb. And also the MEWF.
Wow. Wow.
That's amazing footage to see.
It is. Oh, it is. Let me tell you.
Does it take you back?
Yes. Yes, it does. Those were some great times.
Absolutely.
You know, that was first starting out, and we had fun. We were a big family. Not everybody's always family. That was a big family because we all started it together. You know, we built it up. It was everybody in for everybody, and it was an experience. It was a great time. Oh wow, wow! I'll never live that one down.
No, that's good stuff. Our fans need to see things like that.
Oh wow! But it was fun. You know, that was the whole purpose. Get the fans going. Get them started because this is the show. Here we go. You know, you don't want to start going, okay, yay, here we go. No, get them growled up, get them going. Let's put on a show.
I think a lot of people underestimate the role of the ring announcer.
Mm-hmm.
You're the first person out of the curtain. You're the 1st person that light is on. If you don't present yourself and you're not dressed properly and you don't present yourself properly, it really leaves a lot to be desired as far as the overall presentation of the show. And I really think that role is so underestimated, especially if we have matches like a Texas Death Match or a Battle Royal or a Steel Cage match where the rules are a little bit different. And we may have fans that have come there for the first time and they don't grasp the whole concept of the special rules. And I think you did a really, really good job when you go out there and explain the rules of the match so the fans, first-time fans that are in the stands, can sit there and grasp, like, what a three-way match is. Why is this wrestler pulling somebody off, when they're trying to pin somebody else? What are the rules? And I think if you don't present that, I think you have a lot of lost fans. And if you have lost fans, how do they react to what's going on?
So far, Al, this has been an incredible journey. And I know we're just beginning. You got a lot more to tell. So, folks, we're hoping that you join us next week for the second part of our discussion with Al Albert as we bring you the inside scoop on pioneers of the independent networks.